There is something profoundly unnatural about how modern life feels. You can wake up to an alarm buzzing in a quiet room, make coffee alone, commute surrounded by people you don't speak to, sit through meetings, exchange words, nod, smile, return home, lock the door, and still feel as though no one truly noticed you existed. It happens quietly, without spectacle or collapse, until invisibility starts to feel normal. Loneliness has become so common that we now describe it as a mental health condition, something personal, something internal. We blame personality, social anxiety, screens, introversion, even a lack of effort. But that explanation collapses under one simple fact. Loneliness on this scale is historically new. For most of human history, people did not experience isolation the way we do now, not because they were happier, kinder, or more emotionally evolved, but because society was built in a way that made prolonged isolation structurally difficult. Today, millions of people live alone. Entire apartment buildings where lights turn on and off behind closed doors, where neighbors don't know each other's names. People can vanish without anyone noticing for weeks. Governments now publish reports warning that chronic loneliness increases mortality risk as much as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. In some countries, loneliness is so widespread that it has its own ministry, its own task force, its own awareness campaigns. And yet, no one asks the uncomfortable question, why did this problem barely exist before modern life? The medieval world was not gentle. Life expectancy was lower. Disease was common. Comfort was scarce. And yet, the emotional landscape was fundamentally different. People were rarely alone in any sustained or structural way. The reason lies in something we've been taught to ignore: the medieval household. When we imagine medieval homes, we picture a small family clustered around a fire, a mother, a father, a few children, quiet, intimate. That image is wrong. In reality, the medieval household was dense, loud, crowded, often containing 8, 10, sometimes 15 or more people. The air smelled of smoke, food, animals, damp wood. Someone was always moving. Someone was always speaking. Someone was always working. These households included relatives, but also apprentices, servants, labourers, fostered children, widows, and elderly dependents. People entered households in adolescence and often stayed for years or decades. Leaving wasn't expected. Privacy wasn't prioritised. Separation was rare, and this mattered more than we realise. Because loneliness doesn't come from a lack of people. It comes from a lack of integration, from living a life where your presence or absence changes nothing. In medieval households, everyone mattered because the system demanded it. Food had to be grown, carried in, prepared over open fire, clothes stitched and repaired by hand, tools sharpened, animals fed at dawn, children taught by watching and doing, skills passed down daily, not through institutions but through proximity. Disappearing wasn't possible without the entire system feeling it. Contrast that with modern life. You can feel yourself slipping, emotionally or mentally, and still function well enough to avoid detection. You show up, perform, swipe your badge, send the email, return home, and disintegrate in private. The system doesn't break when you do. That isn't freedom, it's neglect built into the structure itself. We've been conditioned to see medieval life as emotionally barren, a world without individuality or personal space. That story serves a purpose. It allows us to believe progress only moves in one direction, and that what came before must have been worse in every meaningful way. The truth is more disturbing. Medieval people lived in a world where solitude was rare, but belonging was constant. They were seen not because others were more emotionally perceptive, but because daily life made invisibility impossible. Your mood affected the household. Your labor mattered. Your absence was noticed. Today, we treat loneliness as a failure of the individual. In the medieval world, it would have been recognized as a failure of the household. And that distinction changes everything. Because it means the problem isn't you. It's the way modern life is structured. Before we go further, pause here. If you stopped showing up to your daily routines tomorrow, not dramatically, just quietly, how long would it take before someone intervened? Not sent a text, intervened. That answer is the real measure of how alone modern life has made us. Here's the part no one tells you. Medieval households didn't prevent loneliness by being warm, nurturing, or emotionally enlightened. They prevented it by being inescapable. And that makes modern people uncomfortable. The household wasn't a place you retreated to after work. It was the work. Economic life, social life, emotional life, and survival all occurred in the same physical space. The same rooms, the same tables, the same routines. There was no clean separation between who you were and what you contributed. That sounds oppressive until you realize what it removed. It removed the possibility of being unnecessary. Every medieval household ran on continuous visible labor. Cooking happened in shared rooms. Cleaning, sewing, repairing tools, feeding animals, preserving food, all unfolded in sight, often in silence, sometimes in conversation, always together. That visibility created something modern life systematically destroys. Mutual awareness. If someone slowed down, struggled, or withdrew, it was obvious. Not because people were watching closely, but because life was shared closely. There was no hiding behind productivity metrics. Your body told the truth for you. And then there was sleep. Most medieval households slept communally. Multiple people in the same room, sometimes the same bed. Not intimacy, practicality. Heat mattered. Space was limited, but the consequence was constant human presence. Modern psychology tells us humans regulate stress through proximity. Medieval life didn't theorize that, it enforced it. You didn't go to bed alone with your thoughts. You fell asleep to breathing, movement, the creak of wood. When someone was ill, restless, or grieving, it was felt by everyone. That level of exposure made emotional isolation unsustainable. Now comes the part that breaks the modern narrative. Medieval households were age-integrated. Children weren't separated into peer-only environments. Elderly people weren't removed once they became less productive. Teenagers weren't exiled into a transitional limbo. Everyone existed together, daily, across the entire human lifespan. Young people learned competence by watching. Older people retained relevance by advising, supervising, correcting. Knowledge didn't disappear into retirement. The structure answered the question of relevance every day. Then there were apprentices. An apprentice wasn't an employee. They were absorbed into the household. They ate at the same table, slept under the same roof, and worked beside the same people for years. Not networking or mentorship, but shared existence sustained over time. That kind of bond doesn't form through choice. It forms through obligation and endurance. Modern culture worships chosen relationships. Medieval culture relied on enduring ones. And endurance changes everything. Here's the triggering truth. Loneliness thrives in systems where relationships are optional. In medieval life, relationships were unavoidable. You couldn't optimize them away, replace people easily, or disappear without consequence. Conflict didn't dissolve the household, it had to be lived through. It isn't romantic, it's stabilizing in ways modern life no longer is. The medieval household also eliminated something modern life depends on: emotional specialization. Today, we expect one or two people to meet all our emotional needs. When those relationships fracture, the entire emotional system collapses. In medieval households, emotional load was distributed. Advice from one person, labor from another, companionship from someone else. You didn't need to be deeply understood by everyone. You needed to be continuously included. And inclusion was structural. Meals were mandatory. Work was collective. Rituals and seasons synchronized emotional life. People felt together because they moved together. Loneliness wasn't treated. It was prevented. Which leads to the real question. If this system worked so well, not emotionally, but structurally, why did we abandon it? Now we get to the uncomfortable part. The medieval household didn't fade away because it failed. It was dismantled because it conflicted with the priorities of the modern world. What replaced it wasn't progress in the human sense, it was progress in the economic sense. The first crack appeared with industrial labor. Work was pulled out of the household and relocated to factories, offices, and centralized workshops. Skills that once required years of shared living were broken into isolated tasks. The household stopped being productive and became a place you slept between shifts. That single change rewired everything. Time fractured. Days stopped moving together. Presence was replaced with punctuality. The household shrank. Apprentices disappeared. Extended family became inconvenient. Elderly members were removed once they stopped producing. Children were separated into age-segregated institutions. Then came the idea that finished the job: privacy. Privacy was sold as dignity and freedom. Your own room, your own bed, walls thick enough that no one could hear you. What no one mentioned was the cost. Privacy removed friction, and with it, accountability. It removed visibility, and with it, care. Then came independence. Independence sounds virtuous until you realize what it demands: that every individual manage emotional, economic, and psychological survival alone. If you struggled, the system didn't adapt. You were told to. Loneliness didn't explode overnight. It crept in quietly, masked by convenience and control. And by the time the damage was visible, the old system was gone. Here's the part no one wants to say out loud. Modern society depends on loneliness. Lonely people are mobile. They relocate easily, accept unstable work, substitute consumption for connection, seek meaning through products instead of relationships that require maintenance. A deeply integrated household is inefficient. It resists relocation, overwork, and constant availability. So we replaced it with services: elder care, childcare, therapy, social apps. Each one replacing a fragment of what the household once provided, none capable of replacing the whole. And when they fail, we blame the individual again. But here's the diagnosis. Loneliness isn't a personal crisis, but an architectural failure. The medieval household made people necessary. Modern life makes people optional. And that changes how it feels to exist. This isn't about going backward, it's about seeing clearly. You don't need more apps. You don't need to fix yourself. You need fewer exits, spaces where absence is noticed, systems that require your presence. People don't need to be constantly understood. They need to be continuously involved. The medieval household didn't eliminate loneliness by making people happy. It eliminated it by making people interdependent. We traded that for autonomy and called it progress. Now we live with the cost. So here's the quiet takeaway to sit with. If your life disappeared tomorrow, not loudly, not dramatically, would the system around you feel it? Because the answer to that question isn't about your worth. It's about the structure you're living inside. And once you see that, loneliness stops feeling like a personal failure and starts looking like something we were never meant to carry alone.